Welcome to Game Crunch, your weekly video game podcast. My name is Mike Anastasia. With me today we got Brandon.
Hello.
We're here talking about games and things.
Give some things.
Let's see what's on the agenda today. Xenoblade Chronicles Future Redeemed. The new DLC came out. Oh, you actually played Redfall? It just came out like what? Yesterday?
I did play Redfall.
Mm-hmm.
So I will have a story for the reason why I played Redfall also.
Okay.
We could start with that too if you want. But anyway, go on.
I mean, I guess just kind of topping up the show, so yeah, we can get into it.
Okay, so I played Redfall because I needed to stay awake this morning because my friend sent me out a package that required a signature, and it was a birthday gift, a late birthday gift. I didn't really know what it was. I'm very impressed with what it ended up being. It's his entire old computer. He just sent the whole fucking thing to me.
Oh, that's cool.
So I've got computer parts to either sell or use in other machines or what have you, and then that sort of thing. He also sent me an old Nintendo Power, and the old Nintendo Power has Killer 7 on it, which makes me very happy. Because in case other people don't know, which I mean I've made it pretty abundantly clear, but I'll make it clear here as well. I fucking love Suda51. That's just the long and short of it. I love it. I love No More Heroes. I love Killer 7. I tolerated the silver case. You know, I really like his content. And the other thing that my friend sent me in that same package, which was the first thing that we had talked about as a birthday gift in the first place, was he gave me the styrofoam chainsaw from Lollipop Chainsaw.
Oh, I have one of those. I think I might have finally thrown it away, but I do have it.
Oh, that was the thing I said I wanted, because he told me that his friend was getting rid of his like collectibles and stuff, and I was like, oh, okay. And he's like, yeah, he's got the styrofoam chainsaw, or the, I don't know, like foam finger chainsaw from Lollipop Chainsaw. And he's like, I know you like Suda51, do you want it? And I was like, absolutely. So he was going to send that out to me. And then I get the tracking number for the package, and the package is 63 pounds. And I'm like, that's not a styrofoam chainsaw. What the fuck?
No, it's not.
Is that a real chainsaw?
No, not a real chainsaw.
But lo and behold, it's a massive main gear PC that it's like as big as a fucking TV. It's bigger than my monitor and 2 of my computers put together. So it's like huge.
Well, that's pretty big.
So I might do some work on it and might like transfer my computer over to it, because I think that might actually be a really neat idea. But yeah, whatever, it doesn't matter. But because I needed to stay up all day for that this morning, because, you know, UPS, you fucking turn around and they drop off a little slip that says, sorry, we missed you. And then you're like, fuck, now I gotta drive all the way down there and pick up my shit.
I know. It's always annoying when they did that.
So I stayed up all day, and I played Redfall.
Okay.
Now let's talk about Redfall.
Alright.
There's a few things that I could say about Redfall. I will first and foremost say that I kind of enjoy it, and I kind of like it. All right. Next, I just wanted to get that out of the way first and foremost, because what I'm going to say completely spits in the face of what I just said. This game's awful. Like, it's actually awful. It's soulless. It feels unfinished. It looks like it's in beta still. There's often times where I'll be staring at a texture, and it will deload the high-res version of the texture and reload in the like low res version, like the polys aren't loading in, and it looks like a fucking PS1 game at times. It is bad. It is really bad.
I've not heard anything good about this game so far, and it's only been out like a day.
Yeah. So you might be saying like, yeah, why do you kind of like it? It's like got that kind of element where it's like you're watching a really bad movie and you can't help but laugh at how bad it is, and that's kind of why I like Redfall.
Fair.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously I didn't spend $70 for this, and if you did, I am so sorry. This game is like 10 hours long. It's like open world, but like the world is so closed off, and I've actually made a few discoveries, because I did put a fair amount of time into this. I've probably played like 6 hours of this game. So there's that.
It's a good amount of time, enough to make a decision on it.
Yeah. So the world building is actually Very well done, in my opinion. I'm gonna give some positives and some massive negatives. So I'm gonna give a few positives. All right. First and foremost, the world building is like interesting, but the issue with it is a lot of it's done through tapes you pick up or notes that you read. But the actual like ideas and thoughts of it is kind of cool. I kind of like it. I kind of like how they go about it, and I think it would actually make a really interesting like comic book or something like that, and it would be kind of fun. Because like they're in like fucking southern towns and stuff. I think, and all these other things, and you have like literal rednecks and this, that, and the other, and a bunch of just really weird shit. And then like you also have like Boston, and you have all this other like Massachusetts stuff, and it's weird.
Mm-hmm.
And but it's an interesting. It's an interesting setting because of that. And then on top of that, you got some characters that could be interesting, but are not written interesting in any way whatsoever because they're not really that explained at all. You've got a guy who has a crow that follows him around, who allows him to see enemies via like sending out the crow and everything. It's really not explained. There's no reason for it. It just kind of happened essentially, and that's really all there is to it. So it's like, okay, well, I guess that's that. I guess that's what that is. You got a girl who can summon her vampire ex-boyfriend to assist her. Why? I don't fucking know. It's not really explained. There's no real reason for it. It doesn't make any sense. It just kind of happens.
That seems like a very weird, unnecessary detail.
Yeah, it's got all these really weird, unnecessary details that aren't really explained. And that's a lot of the problem. If you had some kind of explanation for some of these characters through gameplay and through actually experiencing it, then I think it would be at least slightly better.
Sad thing is, I bet they have all those explanations. My guess is they probably just chose not to put them in for time constraints or something.
I think so too. Yes, and time constraints is a very big word I would use for this game. It feels like it is in early access, essentially. This game feels like it was released before it was ready to be released. The cutscenes consist of like still images with people talking over the top of it. You'll capture something like a base, and then there'll just be people like fixing up the base, and you'll see like little still image screenshots that kind of go by in like a slideshow sort of deal, like a moving comic sort of deal, with no dialogue whatsoever. You just see them do it, and there's no point to it. You've got the issue I said with the texture streaming not working correctly at all. It's and I'm having a way better time performance-wise than many others are because I have a really, really high-end computer. So there's that. But I've seen other people report like just how bad it is, how unacceptable the performance is, and it's like, yeah, that's really not acceptable. And yeah, I mean, it's just so weird. I haven't had it crash, but also that's really like, if I have to say I haven't had it crash as a positive, that really shows you there's not much to give this game as a positive. There's no matchmaking system, so the only way you can play online is by randomly inviting friends, which doesn't really make sense in an online only game, like at all. Like
no,
it doesn't.
Like it just ruins. Like imagine if something like Splatoon was only with friends. Like you just.
Exactly. So here's a few of the major bugs I have discovered while playing this game. I've already learned how to break the AI completely to the point where like the game is basically moot. There's no reason to even attempt to play it. I can stand in front of a large object such as a box or a car, and the pathing on vampires, well, they just forget where I'm at. If they don't have a direct line of sight, they just kind of stand on the opposite side, swinging and never reaching you. And I'm serious about that.
Seems like an odd mistake. Yeah.
The pathing is very broken. I've gone inside of buildings and I've heard the vampires screeching or saying stuff because they're like constantly speaking and have dialogue that kind of also does little world building things around the town. But here's the really, really weird thing. There's no vampires. There's no enemies. There's no nothing. It's just completely dead. And I have made the discovery that if you legitimately kill yourself in the game, or you fast travel back to the spot that you're at, that will spawn in the enemies. They were there the whole time, and their dialogue was playing, but they never spawned in for some reason. And this happens many, many times in places that are main story-driven areas. Sometimes the enemies, for the combat situations in this game, just don't spawn in. So you don't have to do any combat. You just go grab the thing and you're done. That just happens sometimes.
That's weird.
For no reason whatsoever. And like I said, I've been able to figure out how to get to like force it to spawn them in, which is just by fast traveling or by getting yourself killed and respawning immediately. It doesn't make any sense. I don't know why they deload and don't come back, but you could still hear their voice lines. I don't know. I really don't know. And it's very, very odd. There's elements here of a good game. Like it could become a good game in the future. Because like I said, there is a lot of things to read. There's a lot of information to find out about the world. It's just not shown to you. It's just told to you. And that kind of sucks.
Yeah.
But if they were to improve it, I think that would actually... the game would actually be pretty good. The gunplay is just kind of bog standard. It's whatever. The looting, shooting aspect just really doesn't matter. I like exploring the abandoned buildings because it kind of like paints a picture of what the survivors were attempting to do to like survive this whole vampire onslaught that came about. And I guess I will tell you this element because I left it out because the game kind of leaves it out also, so I just didn't even mention it. You may be thinking, hey, why don't you just leave Redfall, and then, haha, no more game. Who gives a shit, just leave the area? Well, the game thought about that, and the vampires somehow pulled up the ocean and formed a, barrier around the town of Redfall of ocean water from whence you cannot leave. It's not really explained. You just kind of see it, and he's just like, "Oh, that's a weird thing," and that's it. Yeah. That's literally it, and it's just like it's done in such a way, like the actual dialogue, the actual story, quote unquote, is done in such a way that it feels like they didn't have time to make the game, and I just don't understand why. It really makes zero sense. And
I don't know. Maybe they just didn't have faith in it, and it had to come out for cost, and they were just like, "Fuck it."
I mean, it feels like a game where they were just like, "Fuck it." I've also seen other things that are actually entertaining. I've killed an enemy and then watched an enemy pop out from the enemy's dead body that I just killed, and then another one pop inside of it, and then have two of them yelling at me at the same time with their dialogue overlapping, and it's fucking hilarious. I've had an enemy that I've killed continue talking to me while they're dead.
Oh yeah, as people do.
Yeah, I've had animations not load correctly. So one of the interesting concepts of this game is, unlike zombie games, where zombie games you're supposed to shoot the head off and kill them that way, and that's the way you do it. When you're fighting the cultists, obviously you can just kill them with guns, but when you're fighting the actual vampires in this game, you kill them with guns, but then to finish them, you have to drive a stake through their heart. Which is a neat concept, a pretty cool idea, because that means you have to get up close and everything. It doesn't really, it fails on every front essentially, and that's kind of an issue. And then even sometimes the animations, if you're like staking multiple vampires after getting them down to staking level so that you can actually stake them, sometimes the game will just glitch out and you'll just your gun is not where it should be, and neither are you when you go to do the staking, and it's kind of funny. there's very canned animations to the point where it just looks like they added like one or two animations and that is it, and everything else is very stilted and stiff, and it's just there's a lot of potential here, but none of it is seen through. But it is really funny to like load it up and just make fun of it, like a Mystery Science Theater sort of deal, but while playing the game. Because it's not that it's a bad, terrible game. It's just bog standard and really boring and super glitchy. And that sucks. We've had 3 bad PC ports also this year, and this is the third one. We'll talk about the second one a little bit later.
Well, I mean, this is bad on everything, though, right? Like, this isn't specifically a PC port issue. It's just
no. This is just in the game in general. But I will also say this is a bad PC port as well in a long line of bad PC ports lately. I'm running a 4070 Ti, which is totally fine. I'm not really having that many issues, but if I turn off frame generation, I can drop below 60 FPS, which is actually completely insane for an over $800 card to be dropping below 60 FPS. It's not acceptable. And if I'm having that kind of performance, imagine the people that didn't pay that much for a graphics card.
I'm sure.
So there's that. I don't think they will fix this. I don't think they will improve this game, because I do think this is just kind of a bit of a quickly throw it out and forget about it kind of game.
Yeah.
And it
sucks.
Set it
and forget it.
Set it and forget it. Yeah, definitely. It sucks because there is something here, but it can't find its footing, and it's not going to. I don't think the console will ever get that 60 FPS patch. Because, in case you did remember, console is only running at 30 FPS. This is one of those big budget AAA titles that has to go back to 30 FPS, which seems like more and more games are doing lately, instead of the 60 FPS standard that the Series X and the PlayStation 5 will be setting, which was what we were sold when the consoles were, coming out. But that's gone. Who cares? I don't think this is an Arkane problem, and I don't even think this is a Bethesda problem. I just think this is a rush development cycle, no one cared problem, more so than anything. And it's a shame, because there are elements here of a good game, but they just do not capitalize on it. I'll give you a few things, like examples of neat things I've seen. So, for instance, when you capture safe houses, you'll have to fight off some enemies to get the safe house. It's a normal kind of deal that you have with any of these kind of games like that. Like Left 4 Dead did it, Back 4 Blood did it. Those sort of games do it just in general. And even open world games, when you need to capture an area that's safe, you have to defeat a bunch of enemies first. Mm-hmm. Some of the ways that they've had enemies posted up is really neat. Like, for instance, when I went to go capture this one safe house, they had these lookout vampires that literally used their eyesight as beams, essentially. So it was almost like cameras, but it was cameras built into the vampire itself. And they were, and then there's this other vampire that I also met called the Siphon, which the closer you get to it, the more blood it automatically draws out from your body, decreasing your health over time while you're fighting it. So you need to fight it quickly. And little ideas like that are actually kind of neat and interesting. And there was another one, and I can't remember its name, but it's this flying vampire that has the ability to essentially grab you and drag you to it, and unless you shoot it while it's dragging you to it, it can then do a shit ton of damage to you once it gets you in its grasp and that sort of thing. And there's just lots of different little neat intricacies like that, but the AI is so broken, the game is so broken that none of it's really followed through with, and it really sucks, because I do think I would enjoy this if it was properly made. And that's the worst part, because it's not so much that this game is fucking trash or the worst game I've played this year or what have you. I mean, it is probably actually the worst game I've played this year so far.
Impressive.
Which is impressive. So far is also the key word, which is also impressive. But I don't hate it, even though I know it's bad. and it's because I see how this game could be good, and it's just such a disappointment that they didn't have the time to make this, or maybe they just didn't even care to make this good.
I mean, it seems like it's an interesting concept.
It is. It actually is. I think if this were to be given No Man's Sky sort of treatment, I do think this could be turned around. But I do not think another game will ever see a No Man's Sky sort of treatment, and especially a AAA title, because I don't think AAA titles care enough to put the effort in to have that kind of experience, essentially. I think the closest on a AAA scheme that we've come to having the No Man's Sky treatment is probably Cyberpunk.
Mm-hmm.
And Cyberpunk wasn't even that bad on PC at launch. So, yeah. I don't know. It's just disappointing. I'm gonna keep playing it though, because I kind of like it. I'm just kind of turning my brain off and experiencing the world and enjoying my time with it. But I would never tell anyone to buy this. I would never recommend this game. I'd say if you want to see just how bad it is, watch someone play it. Preferably someone that's funny, because they're probably going to have really entertaining things to say about it. Otherwise, I mean, if you have Game Pass, give it a try. But it's such a big download that I don't even know if it's worth your time. So, yeah, it's like 194 gigabytes, by the way. Just thought I'd let you know that. It's fucking massive. Yeah.
I don't understand game sizes that big. It's just wild. It boggles my mind. Like, they make compression for a reason.
Compression doesn't exist in modern gaming, my friend.
I mean, Tears of the Kingdom, it's 16 gigabytes.
It is 16.5 gigs. You're right. Don't ask me how I know that. Oh wait, yeah, yeah. That's how I knew it. Yeah.
Yeah, Nintendo actually this last week they downgraded it from 18 something gigabytes to 16 gigabytes. So, I mean, it can be done. It's just, a lot of times they just don't want to. So, I mean, granted, we're talking about different, what's the word I'm looking for? Resolutions and things like that. So obviously there's going to be some degree of scalability there. But realistically, compression can be done. It can get that stuff done. Yeah. I mean, you look at even the difference from things that were ported over, from previous gens of the Switch that really didn't have an adjustment to resolution. And you can still see quite a difference in compression because they use better techniques. It's just I feel like on the newer systems they're like, fuck it, we don't care, and they just dump everything in there and don't care.
Yeah, I think you're right. Actually, I really do think you're right. I do think no one gives a shit, and we'll talk about another way during news on how no one gave a shit, because we actually got 2 of the worst PC ports as well as worst made games in the same fucking week.
Dun-dun-dun.
All right. I'm going to move on, though. I'm going to talk about my other games.
Okay. Right? Yeah, talk about your other games.
So one of the other games that I will talk about later made me decide to go and play through the original release, which is Jedi Fallen Order. Okay. I've been playing through Jedi Fallen Order on PlayStation 5. That is the Dark Souls-like Star Wars game that involves Cal Kestis. And you know what? This game's really fucking good. Like, I really like this game. As a Star Wars game, it's actually really good. Like, looking at like what Disney and other people have put out lately for Star Wars, aside from like the animated one, and then the anime one that came out a little while ago. Aside from those 2 examples, I think this is like the best modern Star Wars thing that's been released, and it's a long shot ahead of everything else.
I mean, that's a pretty bold statement.
Yeah, I know a lot of people like The Mandalorian, a lot of people like the what the fuck ever else, but I just after the first season I just didn't care. It was like whatever.
I never watched the second season, and I liked the first season.
That's the same way I felt. That is the same way I felt. Yes,
I didn't have any reason not to. I was not like
you just don't care, which is exactly how I feel.
Yeah, which is my unfortunate thing with Star Wars. It's just like after the new sequel trilogy,
Mm-hmm.
like, I mean, let me say, like, when I was growing up, I loved Star Wars, like the classic trilogy.
Same, absolutely.
And then the prequel trilogy came out, and I really enjoyed that too. I know people had their qualms about, whatever, episode 1 and Jar Jar or whatever. But I was, young at the time. I still had a great time with it. And
One
I
and
had
2
fun.
bored me. I thought 3 was pretty alright. That's how I felt, even when I was a kid.
Oh, I mean, I was still hyped for the whole trilogy. But let me tell you. So then 7 came out, and I don't know what it did, but it just kind of like stabbed in there, but didn't completely deflate it. I was just kind of like, oh, I really wasn't a fan, but whatever. And then I saw 8, and it
was fucking garbage.
It just killed Star Wars for me so
Dude,
hard.
I saw 8 in the theaters, and I was with my mom at the time, and she was like super happy about it at the end. She's like, wow, that was so good. And I looked at her and I said, did we watch the same fucking movie? I just wasted like 3 fucking hours of my life here. This was garbage. And I heard someone in the background after I said that just start clapping.
Yeah, and I'll even say too, because this is how I usually am with movies. Like, I watched it in the theaters, and I was like, oh, this is it. I'm like, this is kind of cool, whatever, And then, like, as the more I thought about it, I was like, no, this is fucking dumb. I'm like, I don't think I liked anything about it.
Coming out of the theater was angry. That's how I felt about episode 8. I was angry. I was livid. I was so mad for like a week that I went and wasted my money at the theater to see that and my time.
So
and
many
then everyone was like it did so many different things. It really subverted my expectations, and I'm like, yeah, but it wasn't good.
Yeah, subverted your expectations for a good movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I like, and they're just, they could have done like so many things to kind of fix it. When Carrie Fisher died, they should have honestly used that opportunity to rewrite some of the stuff in the script.
Yeah, they should have.
They should have let her die in that movie as kind of like, a send off. And
yeah, the fucking flying out in the space Jesus scene from that movie was so bad.
I just, I don't have really anything good to say about it. It was so bad. I never watched the 9th one.
I didn't either.
I kind of was like, Mandalorian was kind of like me waiting my toes back in, and I enjoyed it, but it was still not enough to kind of rekindle that flame that I used to have for it, and it's been lingering undead to me ever since. I think the other thing is too, and this is just kind of like, I don't know, nerdy side of me, but I also was not a fan that they just killed off all the expanded universe and just tried to refill it with new things. It's not necessarily a thing that's kind of like good or bad. I agree. Indifferent to it, but I think it just kind of, I think it erased some things that I thought were really cool, and relegating them to nothingness is just, I
do think all of the story of Fallen Order is really good, though. Like, it's been really fun. It's got like really like cinematic moments. I like Fallen Order more as a movie than any of the trilogies, other than obviously the original 3. But it's really good. So, and one of the elements that I will also say to anyone that's actually interested in it, but then hears Souls-like, is there is a difficulty, and my friend who is awful at Souls-likes just plays on story mode, and he has a blast. So, that's an option. That's an option if you so choose to do that instead. I wouldn't, because I actually think it's a pretty fair Souls-like on its like default difficulty. I don't think it's that hard. But yeah, if you need to, that option is there for you. So that's something to keep in mind. I would recommend playing it. It is on Game Pass, so I know you have an Xbox, and I know that's a thing that you have now. So you could easily play this on Game Pass and experience it that way without having to spend any money.
Did not know it was there.
Yeah, and I mean, it's good. It's really, really good. I don't really want to give away a whole lot, but I will say that there have been moments in this that has like the action of like an early day non-bad Michael Bay film. Like Like where it's like there's just like shit exploding everywhere, but you're the one making it happen. Like there's a moment where like you swim to an at and you like climb up on top of it, and you're doing like fucking Uncharted climbing, hopping from one of the like fighting things to another, and you like drop down inside of it, and you like fight the enemies that are inside actually operating the machine, and it's really cool. It's got a lot of the elements of like the games that were on N64 and in the arcade. It's got a lot of those elements, which I think makes this like really, really fun to play. And then on top of that, there's a very robust and extensive lightsaber customization option for the game, like colors and hilts and this, that, and the other. And it doesn't have any effect. Like it's not a customization because like, oh, I want +2 added to my lightsaber or some like looter shooter like bullshit similar to like Redfall. It's just customization because it looks fucking cool. And that element is like really cool in my opinion. Like I like the idea of being able to customize my lightsaber and not change up anything about it. So yeah, there's a skill tree system which is done using the Force. There's a lot here to really, really enjoy, and it feels like older Star Wars games, and the story feels like an older Star Wars expanded universe story that was actually good. That then got retconned out by Disney. So I mean, like I said, highly recommend you check this one out on Game Pass. It's really, really fun.
Okay.
So,
I'll have to do that.
Yes. And then the last thing I played through was I finally finished Danganronpa with Katie. I've been playing through the first game with her. And we just finished it yesterday. I mean, I haven't really ever talked much about Danganronpa, even though I have played them before in the past. I know you said you have them.
Yes.
At least have the first one, I think you said.
I think I have the first one on the Switch and the Vita, and I have the second one on the Vita. So I think I bought them as like a combination at the time.
I see.
I still have not. I think I played maybe like 15 minutes of it on the Vita. Nothing wrong with it. I just was not like in a position to play it when I started it, and I have never gone back to it. I've never booted up the Switch one. I have just been completely negligent of playing this game. And now, like we said last time we talked about it a week or so ago, it just sits in my digital graveyard, just waiting for the day.
Which is honestly a shame, because I hadn't played this in a while, and it was really fun going back through it. I would say the Switch version is awful.
Why?
It crashed on me 5 times, and if you crash on a fucking visual novel, you need to fucking update your hardware.
I mean, crashing on a visual novel seems more like a coding issue to me, but yeah, I don't disagree with you.
I mean, it was like the Switch console crash, not specifically the game. So I feel like it was more of a Switch thing. But whatever, it doesn't matter. Anyway, yeah. I mean, I really enjoyed playing through it with her. She really, really liked it. She liked the story. She thought it was very fun. She wished she could have changed elements of the story, but that's not the kind of game this is. There's one predetermined story as you go through it, and that's what you're going to see. And she was really enjoying the story, and as we got to the end of the story, literally it last 10 minutes before the game ended and went to credits, the Switch fucking crashed. Like, hard crashed. We had to reboot the whole thing and go back through it in order to get to the ending of the game. And I mean, it was fun. It was very fun. It was really enjoyable. I know the second one's even better because the second one has all the mini games and all that stuff, which is a better game because of it. But I mean, the first one is very simplistic. It's all about figuring out who murders are and who did murders and that sort of thing. And then also solving the overall mystery of what the fuck in general is going on. And I think it does enough that it just kind of it makes you want more to the game, without like being like teasing you like, oh, I'm not going to give you an ending, because it definitely gives you an ending, but it also makes you want to see more of this world and find out everything else that's going on. And I really like that about these games, because they all kind of build into one another. And I mean, she wants to play the second one. It's on Game Pass, so is the third one. So we're going to load that up, and she's going to play through those two on Game Pass soon. So we'll be heading over to the second and third game soon. I've never played all the way through the third game, nor have I finished it. So that one will be interesting for me. The second game was my favorite of the three. Like I said, I just dropped the third one, so it's like what the fuck ever. But yeah, I think it's gonna be very interesting to see her thoughts on the second game as we play.
Are you gonna play that Danganronpa like Mario Party game?
I want to. I don't know what the fuck it is, to be completely honest. Like I don't. Danganronpa has two very weird spin-off games, and I don't know if they're canon, and I don't know how much plot from the other games is used in it. So I'm kind of holding off on the two spin-off games till after we finish the other three, just in case, because there is a spin-off game that is a third-person shooter as well. So there's a Mario Party and a third-person shooter spin-off game for Danganronpa, and we'll probably play both of them, but not until after we finish the other ones.
Okay. Fair.
So yeah, that's what I did. That's what I've been doing. I've been busy.
Sounds like it. Well, I got, as promised last week, Xenoblade Chronicles Future Redeemed.
Nice.
Which is the story DLC for Xenoblade Chronicles 3. And it's good. So, what do I got to say about it? So, I guess tee up the story. So, Xenoblade, we talked about it before as they've come out, but Xenoblade Chronicles 1, 2, and 3 all kind of have like standalone stories. So if you've never played any of them before, you can just kind of pick up one of the three and get into it without too much like backstory kind of bogging you down. There are ties between the games that become clear maybe towards the end of each of them. However, they're all written in a way that you don't necessarily need to have played the other ones. Like you don't have to play them in order, but you'll appreciate things more if you have played them and, generated the, extra content or whatever. So Future Redeemed really is kind of, I think, what people are hoping for with 3, knowing that it was going to kind of, because 3 was kind of promised as the end of that trilogy and kind of to explain, I guess, what that like universe is, kind of what connects the threads that connect them. And it kind of did, but it didn't really. And, there was definitely, like I said, their goal was to make a standalone game that doesn't really necessarily need the other ones. But at the same time, they put those threads there. Future Redeemed is basically like, yeah, let's fucking spell out these threads for you. So it's like a prequel to Xenoblade Chronicles 3. And I'm trying to explain it in a way that kind of makes sense, because I don't know if you remember, I think we talked about it briefly during Game of the Year. It does have kind of an odd story to explain, and obviously I don't want to spoil Xenoblade Chronicles 3's story, but I also don't want to spoil this story. So it's a prequel to this, but it involves characters that are from the previous 2 games, all grown up. As shown in the trailers, you have Shulk and Rex there, and Rex is like a grown up like daddy now. So you got all that going on, and then you also have some interconnections with some of the characters that are in 3, and it does a really good job, at least as far as I've seen so far, kind of pulling those threads together to kind of make this universe and these 3 games all interconnect more seamlessly story-wise. So it really is kind of like, yeah, this DLC, this particular package, you probably want to have played all 3 games to kind of understand where everyone's coming from.
I see.
So, but that said, it's great because it's definitely got some like fan servicey moments. It's got some nice ties between the games. It seems to explain like some of the story bits a little bit more. It brings in some characters that were kind of important in other games, but not necessarily like touched on for a while. So you get a bunch of that stuff. So I do really enjoy what I've played so far. It seems to be about, at least from what I've seen, maybe like in 18 hours to complete Dilly, but like 20 to 30 hours to 100%. So there's definitely a lot of stuff going on there. I'm about 80% of the way through it. So I'm not quite sure what weird twist this story is going to take, as Xenoblade stories are known to do. I know it's coming. So it's like, you can see the writing on the wall. Something's coming. And especially because I said, too, it is a prequel to Xenoblade 3. I know what is in Xenoblade Chronicles 3 when you start, and I know what's not in Xenoblade Chronicles 3 when I start. So obviously, some things have to change between now, where I am in the story, and the beginning of Xenoblade Chronicles 3, which is, when I finish this DLC. So something big is coming that's going to tie the rest of this together. So I'm excited about that. I do really enjoy what they have there. The dialogue is kind of top notch. They do pull some like funny jokes in there. Like there's one point where, because I think I mentioned this when we were talking about Xenoblade Chronicles 3 before, because this is kind of like an amalgamation of the storylines of Xenoblade 1 and 2. Like they're both prequels to Xenoblade Chronicles 3 because it's kind of like a merged universe.
Okay.
You'll get oddity things where Rex will be like, "Oh, look at those Orion mountains," and they're like, "Yeah, cool." And then he's like, "I got swallowed by them before." Because in his universe, at one point they were giant, kind of like floating islands that were alive, and now it's just like a mountain feature. And they're like, "Yeah, whatever, Dad. Like, shut up, old man." Yeah, so it's got some like cute, charming dialogue that kind of plays on stuff that's happened in the past. Shulk reminiscent on like things that were kind of like important pieces of gameplay. In Xenoblade Chronicles that are not important pieces of gameplay anymore. Like, oh, this old device, back in my day, we used to do this, and they're like, whatever, we don't do that anymore. So yeah, you just get some nice like fan servicey stuff like that. That's always great. Music's obviously top notch. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 had excellent music. Some of the best songs from Xenoblade Chronicles 3 do carry over into this, but they also brought back some songs. Like I said, this DLC chunk is like the linchpin of pulling those two games together. So they do a lot to kind of bring them back thematically, including the music. So expect some good stuff from Xenoblade Chronicles 1 and 2 in there, thematically, especially with the music. I would say gameplay wise, because it's a prequel, there's some stuff that just doesn't exist yet. So some features were taken out deliberately. But not like in a bad way. Not like, oh, you can't do this because this is not there yet. They changed it into something that's more functional for the shorter gameplay, and that's good. So I do like everything that's there gameplay wise. It all seems to work well. Some of the characters, if you are familiar, some of the new characters, if you're familiar with Xenoblade games, I think you can guess what their lineage is without really going into spoilers. So, yeah, you can see some interesting stuff there. So I really enjoyed everything that I've played in this so far. Like I said, it's definitely a nice, like meaty chunk of gameplay. It does like a nice. How do I put this? It's got kind of like almost like an achievement system built into it, based on things that were in previous Xenoblade games, like the Collectopedia. Like now when you put things in there, you get points that you can use to upgrade your character, for example. Same thing with like they have like an enemy-pedia, I think is what it's called. Or monster-pedia. I don't know. I think it's enemy-pedia. Something like that. Same deal. It's like you kill a certain amount of things, it gives you points to like upgrade your character stuff. So you get that. Then just kind of things like helping out characters in the city and different things like that. They'll come back and give you things that, help you build up your character more. I think that's great. It doesn't seem to, as much as I loved Xenoblade Chronicles 2's standalone DLC Torna, I do remember talking about it on the podcast. It had some weird progression thing that kind of was just a roadblock to slow you down from progressing too fast. And that doesn't seem to have this issue in this one. It's definitely story driven. It's 5 chapters overall, from what I understand. But it's got a good amount of cutscenes and story explanations and stuff in there too. So it's pretty lengthy. Like I said, it is pretty. I think an average person will probably get about 20 hours out of it. Would be my guess, which is kind of what I guessed when we were talking about before it came out about how long I expected it to be. So there's that. It also does give you some unlockables on completion for the main game, which are cool. Okay. And yeah, just generally happy with it. I don't really have anything terrible to say about it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Do you have any questions on it?
No, I think I'm gonna kind of stay away. I don't want to like spoil too much because that one looks really fun, and I haven't got to play much as Xenoblade 3 yet. So,
As you should play Xenoblade 3. It is excellent. I think you said you started it a couple weeks ago, didn't you?
I did. I
Yeah.
did.
Yeah, no, it's good. I would say, I think I said it before. I think out of the three, maybe not the strongest story, but it has a strong story.
Okay.
But I do think it has the best gameplay out of the three. So, um, and I think if you are a fan of Xenoblade games, the other ones, I think you'll really enjoy where the story goes. I even reminiscing back on like Xenoblade Chronicles 3 stories, I'm playing through this kind of like, oh, what happened? You know, kind of I do really enjoy what they did with the story. I don't think how do I put this? You see the writing on the wall,
Mm-hmm.
but it does that thing where it's almost like how do I put this? Like it doesn't really keep any secrets too sacred kind of deal. Like it it's pretty upfront about what its secrets are, but then it gives them to you pretty quickly, but then it gives you new ones to replace it with. Be like, oh, that's what's going on in the story. That makes sense. I can see that. And then but then it's like, well, what about this? And
Mm.
I think it has a nice payoff with it as you progress through. So I think it's really good. I do really enjoy the cast of characters that they put together in this game. I'm really excited to see kind of what they decide to do after this. They kind of wrapped up this trilogy. I mean, speculation on the internet is kind of like, Monolith wants to work on a different series, but Nintendo's kind of like, hey, but we just turned Xenoblade into a moneymaker. Why would we walk away from this?
Yeah.
So, kind of that double-edged sword thing. But I mean, I think this is a great franchise. I think it's really good. Oh, and also too, one thing that I think that you would like, at least from what I've heard, have
Mm-hmm.
not seen it, cannot confirm myself, but just kind of like speculation that I saw about the story about this. But it supposedly further ingrains itself into the just Xeno universe. Um,
Ah.
as if you remember, and I remember you talking about it with Xenoblade Chronicles 2, there were some hints of it there, but it sounds like this one is much more upfront about its hints. So, have not seen it yet,
Interesting.
cannot confirm, but just kind of hinting that I saw on the internet that there is a kind of a payoff in that regard at the end of this DLC.
Well,
So,
that sounds awesome.
yeah, I figured that you would be pretty excited about that. So, uh, yeah, I think that's all I have to say about it, though. It's excellent. I'm very excited. I'm like I said, I'm like the last chapter of this game, so I'm really excited to see kind of like what this payoff is here, because I can see it's coming, and I'm really excited. And honestly, it was just so nice to have Rex and Shulk back again. Like they're just amazing to play with, and I just think that I don't know. There's just something like fun about grown up Rex. That just kind of just I don't know. It's exciting to be like, hey, this character that was kind of a naive kid is now this like gruff, battle weary adult. Yeah, just very happy with it. Anyways, ready to go into news?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay. Where do we want to start? I have one more piece here, but we can probably talk about that with your last piece of news here. Microsoft and Activision deal blocked by the CMA.
Yeah.
I forget what the CMA stands for. What is it? Competition and Markets Authority, which is a UK regulatory agency.
Mm-hmm.
They literally like the day after an article came out that's like CMA set to approve Microsoft
Yeah.
Activision deal.
They're like, no.
They're like, aha, you fell into our trap, suckers. And they're just like, they denied it. And their basis was on cloud gaming concerns.
So I looked further into this. What do you think of this?
I think it's a load of shit, but that's just my take.
So interesting enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
Here, I'm gonna go give you like the lowdown of what's going on, so you at least have a little bit more information after what I found. Because I also thought this was a crock of shit until I looked a tiny bit further into it.
Yeah.
Here's the problem:
Mm-hmm.
the cloud gaming aspect of it. It was currently set up where any purchases made through cloud gaming, 100% went to Microsoft.
Okay.
So, that would have made it so they got around the 30% revenue split that every other console manufacturer takes on games and digital purchases by taking a 100% cut. It was snuck in at the last minute, and the CMA actually caught it. I thought this was kind of cheeky, and also a terrible idea to do this at the last second, because they got caught. And the practice of being able to take 100% of any of the digital stuff, whatever, from games through the cloud space has never been a thing. So this was actually kind of really shady and not a good thing, like, at all. I understand why this was blocked. What I don't understand is that because of this being blocked, and I don't know if you've seen this, supposedly if their appeal does not go through, they cannot attempt this acquisition for another 10 years.
That is correct.
Now that one's a bit of a head scratcher, in my opinion. That one's a bit of a mess, in my opinion. I don't think that one's very fair. I do think the other thing I mentioned is makes sense. Like, I do think them blocking it because of that makes sense and is perfectly reasonable. There's not a single console manufacturer out there that gets 100% revenue from, like, the digital purchases, even through cloud currently. Even with Google Stadia, the developers of said games got some of the revenue instead of just the publisher directly. So the CMA blocking that, I will say, is probably their first good take that they've had yet.
So the 100% revenue thing doesn't make any sense, though.
Why is that?
Well, because then why would anyone do it?
I don't know, but Microsoft tried to.
Well, I'm just saying, because it's like, as if you are, I don't know, let's pick a hypothetical game that's not Microsoft service. Like, what's the big game that would not be covered by Microsoft's publishers already? Final Fantasy. Let's just say Final Fantasy.
Yeah. If when Sony does the 100% revenue on that, yeah, I understand.
No, I'm just saying, like, so if Square was like, hey, like, Square would have no incentive to publish it on their cloud gaming service. Because why would Square? So that honestly seems more like it's in favor for Microsoft than not in the acquisition deal, because it would actively dissuade people from wanting to do it.
I mean, it is greatly in favor for Microsoft to not have done that. I don't understand why they did.
Yeah.
To be completely honest, it doesn't make any sense to me.
Here's some bullet points that the CMA laid out as the shortcomings with the thing. It says it doesn't sufficiently cover different cloud gaming service business models, including multi-game subscription services. It was not sufficiently open to providers who might wish to offer versions of games on PC operating systems other than Windows. And it would standardize the terms and conditions on which games are available, as opposed to them being determined dynamically and creatively in favor of competition for the market, as would be expected in absence of the merger. So I don't know. It is what it is. As for the 10-year appeal thing, that's, I guess, just standard. Anything that doesn't make through, that's just what they stick on it. They don't want them to try again next year, basically.
Oh, okay.
So anything else that, like, fails through there is not like it's specifically against Microsoft. It's just kind of, you know, that's just their usual thing. Obviously, Microsoft's going to appeal to this. I'm all, you know, terms of service, you know, aside, or, you know, payment stuff aside, really, like, the cloud gaming market is so small and not really in a place to be competitive anyways. I'm not quite sure how this would be, like, anything that would change anything, but obviously that's something for, you know, Microsoft and you know, the regulatory authorities to find out. Because if you think about it, to get into the cloud gaming service, like, there's only probably 3, maybe 4 companies that could actively try to get in there. Microsoft. Amazon probably has the resources to do it because they already do have some, like, cloud service stuff. Google, and I mean, you even saw Sony's attempt, but that was just kind of like,
Yeah.
So it's just I don't really know. Unless the basis is they're afraid that Microsoft's going to just have such a lock on software for it that no one else can really compete in that space, and that's maybe more of a plausible look at it. Like obviously, if you're looking at Microsoft plus Activision plus Bethesda IP as Microsoft cloud gaming only, anyone trying to move into that space kind of would have a hard time going in there. There's not many catalogs games that could actively compete with that.
Yeah.
But again, it's such like a niche space at this current age that your payoff, if there's any, would probably be decades away.
Yeah, I agree.
So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how
It
this
really
shakes
doesn't
out.
make a lot of sense why they would do it. Like why they chose to do this of all things. It doesn't make any sense. It really doesn't.
Yeah. So I guess the good / bad news is we're going to be hearing about this news for a long time.
Yeah.
Not going
annoying.
anywhere. Yeah, it's just going to be stuck around for a while. So there's that. All right, why don't you talk about your game news?
Okay,
or did
yeah.
you already talk about those? Yeah.
So I already talked about Redfall. We already talked about that. I kind of bundled that up. Jedi Survivor was the other worst game released for PC this year. This game was so bad performance-wise. Right? The game itself it's great, actually. It's totally fine from everything I've seen and everything I've heard. It's just more of Fallen Order, but better. But here is the issue. On both PC and console, there are massive performance issues. On PC, for instance, a 4090 is not even able to run this at 60 FPS, and there's no reason for that. There really is zero reason for that to be happening, essentially, and it doesn't make any sense. It has massive stuttering, it has hitching, it has glitches, all the good elements of a great PC port, but it actually has more to it than that. Hey, Mike, you're not a PC player.
Nope.
But let me ask you a very simple question that even you should be able to explain.
RAM.
No. Hold on. Okay. That was a good guess, but we're gonna try something else. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So, if I were having a bad experience with my game, like poor frame rate, maybe it's not running the best. What is one of the first things that you should do as a PC gamer?
Reboot your computer.
No, well, that's not correct. The answer I was looking for was, there's like graphics settings. You know how that goes. You know how graphics settings work.
That would have been my number 2.
Yeah. Okay. So, can you go ahead and guess your number 2 then for me?
After graphics settings?
No, after rebooting your computer. Just go ahead and tell me graphics settings because we already know that's the answer.
Yeah, no, graphics settings. That would be the next thing.
Yeah. What if you changed your graphics settings to the literal lowest graphics settings and it didn't do anything? Like it made zero difference in your game's quality. It made it look worse. It made it look worse, but it still played exactly the same. Still incredibly bad and just unplayable. Essentially.
And I would assume it's hardware incompatibility at that point.
Okay. All right. So I'll give you that. But if the hardware is the top of the line computer that you can buy, period,
then the game's a piece of shit.
All right, there you go. That's the correct guess.
Yeah.
Now, don't worry, because I'm going to go over the console side of things as well.
Okay.
Now, this is a next-gen only title. One of those, huge, expansive, big graphics quality, very pretty kind of games. So the PS5 and Series X run the game between 1080p and 1440p. At 30 FPS, and oftentimes dropping into the teens.
Well, how many frames do you really need? You're just being too needy.
You're right. You're right. But let's take this a step further, shall we? Because I think
Okay.
it's funny when we do that.
Mm-hmm.
If you run it in performance mode, it plays at 480p at times on the PS5 and Series X, and still does not reach 60 FPS.
Ew.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a big fucky wucky. The whole game is a bit of a mess. It is not really stable on anything, but it's especially not stable on PC. So, and because you can throw the most expensive hardware in the world at it on a brand new, freshly made computer, and it will not run well at all.
Yeah,
So
that's
that's something to keep in mind.
Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah. So that's where we're at right now.
Okay.
It is not exactly a good experience when playing on PC, like at all.
So, what does are they gonna patch it?
I mean, it's EA, so we'll have to wait and see, I guess.
Yeah.
That's probably a no. Yeah, let's be honest. It's probably a no.
So actually, maybe this is maybe a more interesting place to interject.
Okay.
The other piece of news that I have, it's not really news; it's more of a rumor. But according to those people on the internet that do rumors all the time, aka game reporters, that I don't know, they seem to have a horrible track record lately.
They are not doing so good with their rumors lately. Yeah, they're kind of bad at it.
But rumor lately is that PS5 Pro dev kits are going out soon.
Oh, they're probably going to need them.
No, they don't need them. They don't. That's a huge issue. Like, what are they thinking?
No, I agree. Yeah, I mean, the console is not living up to what it said it would be.
No,
and neither is the Series X.
Yeah,
and now they're wanting to fall back and go back to 30 FPS.
Yeah, there was news this week that the kind of the new consoles were underperforming in some metrics, and it's not really surprising because they really haven't done anything. We talk about it multiple times over the last couple of years, but just to recap those discussions in case you missed them, or are just oblivious to gaming at large. These new consoles, PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X, they've been out for a couple of years now, but they really don't have any software to justify them.
I will respectfully disagree. I will say that Returnal is one of the best games I've played this generation, and is one of the few games I would say actually needs something like a PlayStation 5 to run it.
Okay, that's fair. So one game for 3 years.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm just saying there is at least one piece of software that I think is good. That's all I wanted to interject, basically.
And like I said, that's fine, but I just think that if you're looking for justification for these pieces of like hardware after years, and you have to kind of grasp at a handful of games, that's not reasonable.
No. I don't think it is like a reason to go out and buy one. I'm not. Don't get that twisted and incorrect here. No.
I know what angle you're going from. I'm just trying to say
that more people should play Returnal because it's really fucking good. That's essentially all I'm trying to say at the end of the day.
Which is fine, and they're in this like they've let themselves creep into this really kind of gray area where there's not enough of a market to justify going fully in. For the most part on next generation hardware, so they're splitting between the two, which is making neither of them really that great.
Exactly.
You're making software that's not quite properly made for the last gen, and then you're making software for the new gen that's not really optimized to show off its features. So you're just kind of left with a subpar generation of games. Like you said, it's not entirely like 100%. There are a few gems out there, but nothing that I would say justifies going to the next gen.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's plenty of games in the next gen that are very good and are only the kind of games you would be able to get with next gen games. But I don't feel like it validates paying $500 for a console.
Yeah, no. and you know, like there might be a little bit of payoff. Like, you know, I look at like say like my purchase of the Series X is kind of more of a, you know, investment in.
It's sort of an investment. It's like you getting into dipping your toes in, being like, here you go.
Yeah,
Not
and
really having to pay that much to do so because you're on a payment plan, correct?
yeah, correct. And you know, it also has the Xbox Ultimate. You know, it is backwards compatible, so I can still play my old games and stuff on it.
Yeah.
Which at this point I've probably played more old games on it than I have current ones, but that's, you know, aside the point.
You know, I have too, so like I understand where you're coming from.
But then also just kind of factors into what we're saying. You know, they're not really justifying these things. So for them to go out and be like, yeah, we need a pro system, just kind of blows my mind. Like you're not even using the hardware that you have.
Yep.
And very few of your, like, what? I mean, Sony's put out 3 next generation only games.
Yes. Returnal, Ratchet and Clank, and Last of Us Part 1.
Oh, they also have the Demon Souls.
Oh, Demon Souls 4.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because I wasn't even thinking. I forgot about Last of Us. Although that one's kind of a bullshit one, if you ask me. But I mean,
I do agree. It is kind of a bullshit one, but it does have a very interesting technology that you wouldn't be able to do with last gen consoles. So
no, I agree with that aspect of it. It just pisses me off that it's got a port every single generation with an upgrade.
No, I agree.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, no, it's really not utilizing it at all, and I just don't really think I just cannot imagine the logic that was behind this decision to be like, oh yeah, it's time for the pro system. Like we're just gonna utilize the shit out of it. No, you're not even at a point where that console's saturated enough to even sit on the shelves long enough.
Yeah,
to justify it. I don't know. I'm just absolutely just a loss for words if this is real. Which so I don't know. Part of me just hopes it's just more just flapping heads, just being like whatever. But yeah, I don't, yeah, just lost for words. That's all I got. I don't know. I just can't fathom what they expect to get out of a pro system. So yeah, that's all I got for that. I don't know. I saw that news today and I heard that rumor and I was like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. Like we kind of joked about this for a while. And I think even in like our joking conversation, we're like, well, they're nowhere close to that because they have no reason to justify it.
Yeah.
And granted, they're sending out dev kits now, depending on who they're sending them to. You know, you're still talking maybe a year or two away.
Mm-hmm.
But there's still nothing in the next year or two that makes me think that this trajectory that we were just talking about has changed. So, yeah. I mean, think about God of War. It just came out. It was like their biggest title last year. And it's split between systems. And just kind of, yeah. So, yeah. Anyways, but maybe your last news story factors into this news, which is kind of why I thought this might be a good interjection place because it kind of falls nicely in between what you're talking about with Jedi Survivor and this last piece of news about Sony increasing their acquisition budget. So tell me about it.
So essentially, it was stated by Sony's president that by the end of this fiscal year, okay, let's see. The president of Sony has revealed that the hardware manufacturer aims to increase its acquisition budget by 20% during the next fiscal year. So we don't know what they're wanting to go for or if they're wanting to go for anything, but it feels like they're going to allocate more of their funding towards acquisitions in the upcoming future. That's essentially all it is. It was reported like officially from the president over the weekend on like April 28th or something. Yeah, that's essentially all it was. It wasn't like a big, huge announcement. It was just something they kind of snuck in there, like, yeah, here we go. We're gonna do that. Which kind of made me laugh because it's like, okay, well, you guys were a little angry at a certain someone else doing that and talking about how you guys are homegrown with your gaming studios and everything, and now you're just like, but what if we weren't? I don't know. It just feels a little disingenuous to me, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, I really hope that they just get the same
They won't.
scrutiny.
They will not.
Microsoft has.
You know just as well as I do, they will not.
I know they won't. I'm just saying.
They won't get any scrutiny whatsoever. Everyone will praise them, which is exactly what's already happening on like gaming Twitter and Reddit. Everyone's like, "Yeah, you show them. You go do to them what they try to do to you." And it's like, do you not realize how much of a fucking cheerleader and idiot you sound like right now? Like, you fucking idiot. You're like, yeah, that console and that manufacturer, they're not allowed to do it. But the one that did it first in the early 90s and already snatched up most of the really good developers in the first place, let's just let them do it again.
Well, I think the bigger issue here is, it's, if you look at like the big picture here, Sony is considered the market leader.
Yeah.
Even though I think depending on which angle you look at it, it's debatable, but overall, I mean, they're definitely considered a market leader compared to Microsoft. If you kind of look at that like specific subset,
the only way you could say a Microsoft is a market leader is if you count like the actual OS of Windows, and then that's just very disingenuous to the point that it's like kind of unfair.
Yeah,
which is absolutely what a lot of people do, and a lot of people like to point to. They're like, yeah, but Microsoft has Windows, and how many PC gamers are there? And it's like, bro, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, and that number is always changing too. I mean, you have stuff moving in there like the Steam Decks, pulling people out of that space. Windows is not Windows is not a requirement for gaming like it used to be.
No.
So yeah, it is pretty disingenuous. It's more is, how do I put this? More people happen to have Windows computers because that's just kind of what the standard is. But not necessarily a requirement for gaming. And like I said, just the way the market's moving, that seems to be less and less of a requirement as time goes on.
I mean, then again, also like Windows. We're moving to a Linux like thing for gaming on computers now, like with things like the Steam Deck and the ROG's upcoming console, whatever the fuck that might end up being. That those things are like pushing things more towards a Linux-based gaming platform for computer gaming.
Yeah. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how this ends up panning out. Watch the Microsoft deal get blocked, and Sony's like, "Hey, we'll buy Activision."
I'm actually kind of expecting him to buy Take-Two or try to. And here's the one that will probably end up being the actual purchase: Square Enix.
Yeah. And either of those would be far more devastating, I think, to Microsoft than the other way around. So, yeah. Be interesting to see. Did they? I may have just missed it when you said it. Did they give a number how much they're increasing their acquisition fund?
Just 20% of whatever their current budget is.
Oh, so didn't give a firm number, but just said it's there. But you could expect it is probably a decent amount considering they bought what's Bungie for what, $2 billion?
They bought Bungie for something. I don't know what they buy Bungie for. Let's see. Sony
too much. I know that.
Bungie $3.6 billion.
Yeah, not really. I would say not really.
I mean, they didn't get Halo, so like, Bungie is Halo and
Destiny.
No, I was gonna say and
Marathon.
Marathon. Thank you. I was trying to remember the name, and I just could not.
Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, that's just kind of there. Let's be interested to see how it plays out. If anything, I'm sure they have something in mind if they're looking that way, but we don't know yet. So
yeah, we're not there yet.
Yeah, not there yet. Anyways, that's all I got. Do you got anything else?
No, I got nothing.
All right, let's wrap up then.
All right, sounds good.
Thank you, everyone, for listening to us tonight. Don't forget to find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Google, Amazon, wherever you get your podcasts. We also have our website, game-crunch.com. You can listen to all of our episodes. If you want to reach out to us, we're on Facebook. We're on Twitter for now. And I honestly, I think it's just a matter of time before Twitter just becomes a dead space for us. So
Twitter's going to become a dead space for everybody eventually.
I know. Well, this whole thing, because I was just thinking about it today, because I saw, what was it? another website has dropped support for Twitter because of their change in pricing for their API.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, well, really, Twitter's biggest function for the podcast right now is kind of just posting about the new episodes there. But if, the host that we use drops support for Twitter, in terms of like updating things there, then I don't think anything's going to end up getting posted there anymore, which means it just literally will be a dead space for us. So,
like the game. Dead
like
space.
The game. It's just like the game. Yeah, and then I don't know. I guess our Game Crunch Twitter will turn into a necromorph and start posting dead things. I don't know. I don't know what happens when you have an undead Twitter. So
good question. I don't know either.
Yeah, I don't know. So the way things are headed, we'll find out sooner than later.
Sooner than later.
Yeah, just seems like the owner of Twitter is just doing everything in their power to try to make poor business choices to drive that thing out of operation.
They made businesses even get rid of Twitter, their Twitter check marks. You can't have them now unless you're a Twitter Blue user. It's like even the like confirmed official like businesses and like influencers and stuff, they lost them all like a few days ago.
Well, then there's the funny thing though. I don't know if you saw it. There are like they're giving them to other people.
I did
because nobody's paying for it, so they're just giving them to random people. And then they put some people. Well, you have like some weird situations where I think Stephen King was like, "I did not pay for this. I will not pay for this. I do not want this. Like, use this money for something else." Which makes me laugh. But then you have other oddities too, where they tried to. I want to say they're giving like check marks to like dead celebrities.
That's crazy.
And they gave one to it was like a Disney parody account that like tweets out like very inappropriate things. Because they're trying to like be like, oh yeah, look at this. People are paying for this, so you should too. So it seems like even that strategy is backfiring on them, because they're doing it poorly. What they should have done is they should have let some things stay grandfathered in on it. They had been it previously, but no. Let's just do it in the worst way possible. Just kind of pull out another domino from underneath this stack of mess. I don't know. So yeah. So anyways, yeah. So that's the state of Twitter right now. Do you have any final thoughts?
No, not really.
Okay. Well, you know what? Neither do I. But you can find me online, Clash of Penguin, online or on your favorite gaming console. And until next week, game on.
Games. Did we talk about I'm guessing we didn't talk about Jedi Survivor last week, right?
No, we did not.
Oh goodness. Oh goodness. Okay. I'm
trying to see what other news is there to this week.
That's going under news. Jedi Survivor is. I didn't play it. I can't play it. So yeah.
Why can't you play it?
Oh, you'll find out soon enough.
Okay.
Jedi Fallen Order. This isn't the reason why I can't play it. It's not because I haven't finished the first one. Although I did start playing the first one. There we go. We'll just put those three for now. That'll be all. You know what? Let's just put this in news also. And Sony increasing, what was it? Acquisition budget? Sony, yeah. And what was it? Sony increasing. Hold on, let me go find it so I can get this right. Mm-hmm. I was right. Can you hear me right now?
Yeah. What were you right about the acquisition funding?
What?
What were you right about the acquisition funding?
Yeah, Sony increasing their acquisition budget. All right, there we go. That's what we got. Let's talk about that.